Alright, this is part 2 of my 10,000 hours. Yeah, this is where it gets fun. So, my wife gets the job at the insurance company. And they said, they had no problem with husbands and wives working at the same place, blah, blah, blah. And we were married at that point. And so I was just pretty much, I put in my application and I went in to try to be a supervisor. And they hired me under the pretenses I would be a supervisor. And I don't know what the fuck happened. Somehow I got fucked. Because right after I got hired, that lady that was doing the hiring, she got let go, and then they replaced her, and somehow I just became a regular employee.
Would you like two of these?
Sure. Just make sure you stir the potatoes good, though, because the edges, you burn them. So, I went through training, came out. Now, usually, you do a shit ton of training in these type of deals. I mean, like weeks. And then they come out, they put you on the phone, or they put you in claims. And you have to do that for 9 months before you can do anything else. Or sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's maybe even 2. As soon as I came out, they put me on the phones. They put me dealing with doctors. And 3 weeks later, a supervisor that I didn't know, but he seemed pretty cool, was outside smoking. He goes, "I'm pulling you on my team." Okay, who the fuck are you? Don't know who the fuck you are. He goes, "Well, we deal with the special ones." I'm like, what? Retards? I didn't say retards, but what the fuck are you talking about? And it was the CEOs and all that shit. I'm like, okay. And it was because I was able to de-escalate every call. I never had to transfer. I never had to anything. And so they saw it real fast. My quality, my times, everything was fine. So they transferred me over, and that created a little shitstorm in the office. And that was, at that time, 900 people. So I done just pissed off about 900 people. Now, then I meet this girl named Rebecca. Rebecca is a person like me. She found ways to get the fuck off the phone. She invented ways to get the fuck off the phone, which I dig that. And she came up with this whole deal and was able to exploit overtime and everything else. So basically, I was able to get she liked me, so she let me do it. Here I am, only a few weeks, actually working, and now I'm doing 26.5 hours a week and overtime doing this extra work. And then again, I pissed off about 900 people. And then I got my wife in it too. Oh my God, that's the year that we pissed off the IRS, because we smashed 6 figures. I mean, we smashed it hard. With absolutely nothing to deduct. Oh, God, that was bad. Talk about an anal rapage that I'm still dealing with. Almost done, though. That's how much it does when you do a year's worth of two people doing 26 and a half hours a week of overtime. So, in the process, for like 2 years, this kind of went on. I was taking these calls and then doing this stuff on the overtime. And then, I don't know, this new lady came in to head up the phone department, the department that like handles all the phone systems and how to route, like how to send certain types of calls to people and everything else. It's really cool how it works. I wish I can go into it, but I can't. She comes in, outside smoking. She's kind of cute. Hitting it up, talking to her. And next thing I know, I'm job shadowing in her department. And, I mean, it just became a funny deal because they would pull me off the phones, go do that, then I'd go do my 26 hours of overtime. And then the IS had me job shadow them as well when they do big rollouts. So my security file ended up being one of the biggest ones in the company because I was working in all these departments. I could literally pick up a phone, even from here, and like dial some numbers, and I can listen to any rep. Listen to their phone call. Just tap in. During this time, the first like 4 or 5 years in the company, I was excelling on like paper and within certain little small groups. And I'm going to say this because there's this key thing called perception. And my wife ended up getting terminated for a really bullshit deal. And, oh man, I was pissed that day. I stared at her supervisor every time I went outside to have a cigarette. I just sat there and just stared at her till the point she quit. And her husband's supposedly a biker. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't threaten her. But apparently I can have a pretty asshole looking mean look or something. And when my wife got fired, my supervisor at the time, Brett, he was cool. He was a really cool guy. You know, a lot like me. Didn't grow up in a white collar house. Grew up blue collar. Didn't think he can go into white collar. Never went to college. Blah blah blah. And he pulled me aside and he's like, dude, because I've been applying for supervisor every time it came up and I get fucking knocked straight down. I mean, I'd get bitch slapped down. And he's like, dude, your perception is killing you. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not doing anything wrong. And he goes, yeah, but when you walk through all, through the cubicles and everything else, and people look at you, you look like you're going to kill them. I said, well, they're stupid. And I'm tired of, at that time, I was on they changed me from taking like CEO calls. Well, I was still taking them, but they were also routing me the supervisor calls. So I'd have to listen to some stupid dumb fuck, especially the ones that have been there like 5 years longer than I have, who couldn't even do a goddamn fucking thing. So I'm getting transferred and dumped a call on. So yeah, I looked at them like they're a fucking piece of shit, because they are a piece of shit, and I'd fire their stupid ass. And that killed my thing of becoming a supervisor. The other thing that killed it was there was about 4 of the other supervisors that didn't like me because they were threatened by me, not physically, but they knew I knew more than them. They knew I knew more than them about supervising. They knew I knew more than them about the job and everything else. And they were promoted in these little tiny offices and got, shipped off to our office. And if they were actually trying to be supervisors there, they would have never made it. But somehow they did. But they didn't want me. And it got bad to a point that one of the directors had a really cool idea about hiring supervisors. The first interview was with one supervisor and a couple of the people that actually just worked in the office, regular people. And then we would discuss yay, nay, whatever after the interview. One lady comes in. I'll name her Pam. And she was in the military, which was cool. She was in the military for 15 years or 12 years, something like that. And then she's out. She was a supervisor here for about 3 months and here for 4 months and then this. So we're asking questions, and I asked her a couple about her military. And I asked her what rank she was. Now, technically, she didn't have to answer that, but she said an E3. And I said, okay. And I acted like I didn't know. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, how many years were you in? And, and I thanked her and everything, because that was just post 9/11. And I'm like, after the thing's done, the supervisor went around, and I was cool with this supervisor that was in the room. She was actually kind of my supervisor for a while, and I was really cool with her. And she went around the room, and everybody's, oh yeah, she's cool, she's cool, she's cool. And she got to me, and I'm like, no. And she goes, why? And I'm like, she spent 12 or 15 years in the Air Force, and she came out in E3? In E3? Something's not right there. I mean, okay, let's go past that. Now let's look at every one of these jobs, because everybody's gloating. She was a supervisor here, and supervisor here, and supervisor here, and I'm like, but look at the time frames. She was only there long enough to know nothing. her rank in the military, I think it was an E3. But she really wasn't in charge of really anything or anyone there with her job in the Air Force. And these jobs, she never was there long enough to have any real experience. And I'm like, I mean, to me, her military concerns me, but even more, her private. Because it looks like she's a job jumper. She goes to a place where she gets to the point that people know she's full of shit, and she finds another job. Yes?
The dishes that I cleaned by hand, I don't know if she...
No, she didn't clean any.
Oh, well, then there's any forks.
You can just clean off a fork.
Okay.
Just do it by hand.
Okay.
But she didn't work anywhere long enough to really have any experience supervising. And the supervisor was kind of giggling because she goes, I saw that too. And I said, yeah. And I jokingly said as I was leaving the room, I said, but I guess you'd probably be the one that gets hired. Sure enough. And she was the worst fucking supervisor they ever hired. And I told them not to do it. It was to a point that something happened, and she like completely missed a shift at one point. And the one guy that sent me to the side, I mean, he was high up now. He'd been promoted a few times. And when she came back in, she was all like, blah, 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 fucking nuts. And because she couldn't find her wallet. It's like she just didn't call into work, didn't anything, didn't whatever, because she couldn't find her wallet. And it's like, okay, maybe you need a couple bucks of gas. Maybe one of us could have just gone by and picked you up or whatever, or helped you out, whatever, you know? It happens, shit happens, you know, no big deal. The guy that rear-ended me and fucking broke my back, I fucking drove him to work for 3 weeks before I fired his punk ass. So shit happens, you know, it's life. But she's fucking going completely fucking batshit crazy. And I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and I'm like, whoa, slow your roll, man. What the fuck? And she's like just hysterical. And I'm like, you lost your wallet. Call in your credit cards and it's all good. And she ended up, she's not really a supervisor anymore. I'm actually higher than her. It's funny because this is part of the whole thing about that 10,000 hours is that first four years, 5 years at that company, I learned a lot of things. But I also fucked myself hard because of perception. So many people on here don't understand how bad perception can fuck you. How bad it can fuck you. Don't fuck with the blister. Just pop it or leave it alone. And for me to get up higher, somebody gave me the advice to, oh, this is even better. I forgot about this part. At this time, the deal that girl Rebecca came up with became a team of people. And I was on that team. I was second one hired after her. We went through a couple of supervisors, and then it came to a point where there were not enough supervisors, and this is a type of thing that they can't hire one out for. And I'm like, why don't you make me the fucking team lead? Then I'll stop bugging you guys about being a supervisor, and I can prove myself. And then I can laugh at everybody who says I can't be a supervisor. And I told this to the director. We were cool. And she's like, okay, we'll do that. So I headed up that team for about a year. We smashed every other office, and we were a third of the size of all the other teams. We smashed the shit out of them. And I got the numbers up from the previous supervisors. I got we were just, everything was killing it. And I walked back in, and they asked me to redo the escalation SOP. I said, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll do it. And at that time, corporations are famous for this, just changing shit all the time. And they changed it and changed it and changed it. Then they try to tweak it and tweak it. And at this time, it's so fucked up. Well, doing janitorial, I learned how to put a plan together as far as attack. You know, go through, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. So we can get in and get out as fast as we can. The more places we can clean, the more money we can make. It's all good. So I redid this whole SOP, turned it in. She loved it, and the other assistant director loved it. The two business managers loved it. So they sent it up to corp to get okay. Isabella's about ready to be born. I mean, I am like fucking 2 days from taking my week off for her being born. And I get a call in by one of the managers, and she's like, hey, you got to gather your troops and tell them that starting next Monday, the team's going to be disbanded, and they have an opportunity to refile for this new position, or they can go back on the phones as a regular person, take a pay cut, or they can leave. And I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. Cliffhanger. Peace.